The tires crunched over the gravel driveway, each sound echoing like a warning through the late afternoon silence. I had been gone only a week, yet a heavy unease had settled in my chest as I approached my farm. My body, exhausted from endless city meetings, tensed with an inexplicable dread. And then I saw them. Robert, my son, and Sarah, his wife, my own family, were bending over my belongings, hauling them into a large, gleaming moving van. My hands froze on the steering wheel. My grandmother's rocking chair, the chest I had inherited from my father, the hand-painted dresser I had rescued from a flood, all of it disappearing under their hands, as if I had no claim to it at all. "Mom!" Robert's voice was careful, too calm, but his eyes darted nervously. We thought you'd be gone for a while." "Thought I'd be gone?" My voice cracked, disbelief sharpening into fury. "You're stealing from me. From your mother." Sarah's lips curved in a smirk, a gesture that seemed rehearsed, calculated. She tilted her head, her eyes cold. "It's just business, Mom. You can't hold on to everything forever." Business. The word hung in the air like poison. Every laugh we had shared, every tear we had comforted each other through, every story I had passed down, reduced to nothing more than an obstacle in their scheme. I stepped out of the car, my legs trembling, and the scent of rain-damp earth filled my lungs, grounding me even as my world tilted. My hands clenched, nails digging into my palms. "Stop this. Right now. I will not allow it." Robert's shoulders stiffened, and for a fraction of a second, I thought I saw remorse. But Sarah leaned into him, whispering something I couldn't hear, and that fleeting spark vanished. Their unity, their deception, it was a coordinated betrayal, executed with precision, planned behind my back for months, perhaps years. The van door slammed, the echo bouncing across the yard, and my heart sank deeper. I realized with a cold certainty that this was more than greed. It was calculated. It was personal. It was my life, my memories, my sanctuary, and they were erasing it piece by piece. I felt shock and fury clash in my chest, each emotion sharp and jagged, leaving me breathless. I wanted to scream, to fight, to reclaim what was mine, but a voice in the back of my mind whispered a darker truth. I didn't yet know the full extent of their plan. And then I noticed it. A folded envelope, hastily stuffed under the driver's seat of the van, its edge peeking out like a clue, a warning. My fingers itched to reach for it, but before I could move, Robert glanced up, catching my gaze with a fleeting, guilty panic that vanished almost instantly. I swallowed hard, realizing in that instant. What they were doing wasn't just theft. It was a betrayal so deep that nothing I had ever imagined could have prepared me for it. And in that fleeting, electric moment I knew my life and everything I had built was about to change forever. I am Hortense, a woman who built her life from the ground up, brick by brick, sweat by sweat. This farm wasn't just property. It was my sanctuary, my legacy, a testament to decades of hard work and sacrifice. Every corner of the land held memories. Summer evenings spent rocking on the porch, the scent of fresh hay mingling with the warmth of the kitchen, the distant hum of crickets at night. This was the world I had nurtured alone after my husband passed, a world I thought was safe. Robert had always been my pride. As a boy, he had bright eyes full of promise, a quick laugh that could light up any room. I raised him with care, teaching him the values I held dear: honesty, perseverance, respect for family, and the unspoken importance of keeping one's word. Sarah arrived quietly into our lives, with a gentle smile and a seemingly warm heart. At first, I welcomed her. I thought she would share in our family's love, perhaps even strengthen the bond one had with Robert. But over time, subtle things shifted. Sarah's laughter sometimes felt forced. Her compliments carried an edge of calculation. Robert, once open and warm, began withdrawing, staying late at the office or disappearing for long calls he insisted were urgent. I noticed the glances they exchanged, quick, secretive, like a plan was quietly unfolding right in front of me. Family gatherings, once warm and chaotic, became awkward dances of politeness and hidden tension. I would watch Robert and Sarah converse in whispers, their eyes flicking toward me as if testing boundaries I didn't know existed. I tried to dismiss the unease, telling myself I was imagining things. But the feeling persisted, crawling like ice down my spine. Something was wrong. The farm, which had been my place of solace, began to feel fragile, as though the very air had thickened with secrecy. Each creak of the floorboards, each sudden rustle in the trees, seemed to echo the betrayal that was quietly taking root. Even small details began to gnaw at me. Bank statements with withdrawals I didn't recognize, unopened letters addressed to me with strange markings, a neighbor's offhand comment about Sarah inspecting my property alone. And yet I had no proof. I had only the gnawing certainty in my chest that my son, the boy I had raised with love, and his wife, the woman I had trusted, were capable of deception. My stomach twisted every time I imagined what they could be planning, each scenario darker than the last. Then one evening, I discovered something I hadn't expected. A stack of papers shoved behind the living room bookshelves, their edges frayed, marked with signatures that were not mine, documents that threatened to erase not just my home, but the very life I had built. It was at that moment, holding those papers trembling in my hands, that I realized the betrayal was not just possible, it was already underway. And the storm that would engulf my family and my life was only just beginning. Days passed, but the unease never lifted. It grew, gnawing at me like a relentless shadow. I watched Robert and Sarah move through the house with a casual familiarity that was both infuriating and heartbreaking. Every corner I entered, every room I opened, I found subtle reminders that my sanctuary was no longer mine. A misplaced photo, a suspiciously opened drawer, a faint smell of perfume that wasn't mine. It was all deliberate, calculated, a quiet invasion meant to unsettle me. I confronted Robert in the kitchen one morning, my voice trembling between rage and despair. "Why are you doing this? This is our family. How can you betray your own mother?" He avoided my gaze, hands fumbling with the coffee cup as if it were a lifeline. "Mom, it's complicated. We're just trying to plan for the future," he said, his words slick and hollow. Sarah stood behind him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder, her eyes sharp and unblinking. "You worry too much," she said softly, but there was a venom beneath her calm, a certainty that she held the upper hand. I felt my chest tighten, the room closing in. Humiliation and disbelief surged through me. The people I had loved, trusted, and nurtured were turning my life into a stage for their manipulation. I caught glimpses of whispered conversations when I was out of the room, hushed laughter that ended abruptly whenever I entered. I began keeping notes, tracking odd bank withdrawals, strange phone calls, and the unusual times Robert left the property. One evening, while Sarah was out, I discovered a small envelope tucked under the couch cushions. Inside were photographs, proof of late-night visits, secret meetings with strangers whose faces I didn't recognize. My hands shook, gripping the edges of the pictures. They weren't just planning to take the farm. They were weaving a web of lies, forged signatures, and legal deceit, all designed to erase me completely. Anger burned through me, mingling with despair. My son, the boy I had taught to honor truth, was slipping further into her grasp, manipulated by her cunning and ambition. Every conversation now was a battle. Every glance, every silence, weighed heavy with unspoken threats. The air itself seemed charged with tension, the walls whispering secrets I wasn't meant to know. Then came the moment that shattered my fragile composure. I overheard Sarah speaking on the phone in the study, her voice low and triumphant. "Everything is ready. She won't even know until it's too late." A cold shiver ran down my spine. My heart pounded, a storm of dread and resolve colliding inside me. The betrayal was no longer hypothetical, it was imminent. And for the first time, I realized that the person I had trusted most, my own son, might not be able or willing to stop it. As I stood there, listening to her words echo through the house, a single thought crystallized in my mind. I had to act. But how do you fight those you love when love itself has turned against you? And in that suffocating silence, I glimpsed the first flicker of the storm that would change everything. And the truth I would uncover next would leave us all shaken to the core. The rain had begun to fall in thick sheets, drumming against the roof like a warning. I had waited for this moment, every nerve taut, every heartbeat a drum of anticipation. I had installed a small hidden camera in the living room weeks earlier, a precaution I had once thought unnecessary. Now its silent lens was my only shield against the treachery unfolding under my own roof. I pressed play on the small screen, and my blood ran cold. Robert and Sarah moved with precision, counting stacks of cash, sifting through documents with ease, and laughing in quiet triumph. Their casual familiarity with my belongings, the very things I had cherished for decades, was gut-wrenching. This was no impulsive theft. This was a meticulous, calculated betrayal. I stormed into the room, my voice slicing through the quiet like lightning. "Stop this. Now!" Robert froze mid-motion, his hands hovering over the papers. Guilt flickered in his eyes for a fraction of a second, then vanished, replaced by fear and confusion. "Mom, wait," he started, but Sarah cut him off. "You think you can control this?" she snapped, stepping forward, her eyes blazing with defiance. Everything we've done is for the future. Don't act like you're the victim here. I swallowed the sting of betrayal, my chest tightening with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. This isn't about money. This is my home. My life. You have no right. Then came the revelation that made my knees buckle. In a folder she had carelessly left open, I saw the forged documents, my signature, duplicated with chilling precision, granting them full rights to sell my farm. And beneath them, letters of intent, contracts, and even communications with potential buyers. They weren't just taking my property. They had been preparing to erase my existence entirely, legally and financially. I felt a surge of rage, so intense it blurred my vision. How could you, Robert? My own son. Was any of this real? Robert sank into the couch, head in his hands. I didn't mean to, Mom. I thought, she said it was the only way. His voice was fractured, desperate, a confession laced with shame. Sarah's lips curled into a cruel smile. See, even he understands the logic. Logic. My heart ached at the twisted sense of reason they had imposed on me. Months of manipulation, deception, and subtle intimidation had brought us here. My life hanging in the balance, my trust shattered. But in that moment, a spark of determination flared inside me. I wasn't just a victim. I had proof, evidence, and the courage to reclaim what was mine. As I gripped the camera in my trembling hands, my mind raced. The confrontation, the police, the legal battle. It was only beginning. Yet even as the storm raged outside, I realized something darker lingered beneath their betrayal. Sarah's plans were far more sinister than I could have imagined, and the truth I was about to uncover next would shock not only me but everyone who thought they knew my family. The courtroom smelled of paper, polished wood, and tension. Robert sat beside Sarah, his face pale, shoulders hunched under the weight of guilt I could see but could no longer forgive. Sarah, ever composed, tried to maintain an air of superiority, but there was a flicker of fear in her eyes that even her practiced smile couldn't hide. I presented the evidence, the hidden recordings, the forged documents, the photographs of secret meetings, and watched as the truth unfolded in front of everyone. Each piece of proof was a hammer striking at the fragile armor of their deceit. Robert's voice wavered as he admitted his complicity, the manipulation Sarah had inflicted on him becoming painfully clear. The judge's gavel fell like a verdict not just on law, but on betrayal itself. Ownership of the farm was reaffirmed, the stolen items returned, and the van, packed with years of memories, emptied under my watchful eyes. Justice had been served, but the emotional scars remained. I had reclaimed my home, but the bonds I thought were unbreakable had splintered beyond repair. Even as relief coursed through me, a new wave of sorrow settled in my chest. Robert had been my son, and yet the betrayal cut deeper than any outside threat could have. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the shame, the regret, the knowledge that he had been manipulated into nearly destroying the very foundation of our family. Sarah was escorted out, her confidence replaced by fury and disbelief. She glared at me once, as if to curse my survival, before disappearing into the shadows of her own choices. My heart pounded with a mixture of triumph and exhaustion. I had survived the storm, but I knew the echoes of this betrayal would linger like ghosts in the corners of my home. Later that evening, standing on the porch, the sun setting in fiery streaks across the fields, I allowed myself a moment of quiet reflection. The farm was mine again. The memories were intact. My spirit, though tested, had endured. And yet something caught my eye, a small, folded envelope tucked beneath the porch railing, unnoticed until now. Hands trembling, I opened it. Inside was a journal, written in Sarah's meticulous hand, detailing plans far beyond what I had uncovered. The depth of her manipulation, the intricate schemes to control not just the farm but the people around her. I realized then that even though she had failed, the darkness she had introduced into our lives had left a permanent mark. I closed the journal and breathed deeply, the wind carrying the scent of rain and earth. I had reclaimed my home, my dignity, my life, but the lessons of betrayal, manipulation, and resilience would remain with me forever. And as I looked out over the fields, I whispered to the empty air, a vow and a warning intertwined. They thought they could take everything from me, but they could never touch my spirit.